Good evening, one and all. The topic is about user-defined exceptions. So in the previous tutorial, I have explained about what is exception handling, what is error, what is the difference between compile time and runtime error. So what is predefined exception and what is user-defined exception. So if you want to know about predefined exceptions, then just go to YouTube and click on A.K.R. and just type search button. So here you will find all my videos. Okay, here is a video for exception handling for predefined exceptions. Good evening, one and all. The top. So let's go to predefined user-defined exceptions. So the first question is why we need user-defined exceptions. Why we need to create our own exceptions. Let me explain with a few examples. So for example, I want to raise an exception when a user enters age less than 18. Okay, I want to raise an exception when a user enters age less than 18. Another example is, for example, a student enters marks less than 35. So I want to raise an exception. So for these type of conditions, there are no predefined exceptions defined in the Oracle server. So I have to create my own exceptions based on the requirements like this type of condition. So these are called user defined exceptions. Okay, so exceptions are categorized into as predefined, user defined. So these are all predefined exceptions. Okay, some of the examples of predefined exceptions. So user defined exceptions. So in this particular tutorial I'm going to explain about user defined exceptions using raise class. Okay, there are some other methods also to raise user defined exceptions, but in this particular video I'm going to explain user defined exceptions using raise class. Okay, let me move on to the program. So edit raise demo dot, okay, edit. So I have already created program demo1 dot sql, edit raise demo1 dot sql. Okay, here is some program for calculating division of two numbers. So here is a chance of exception. So when the user enters b value, then there is a chance of exception. Let me execute this code. So at the rate raise demo 1.sql, enter value of 4, enter value of 2, so division is 2, no issue. Okay, now again I'm trying to execute the code. Now a value is 4, b value is 0, then there is an error. The PLSQL program has not been executed. So you have to handle this type of executions. Okay, you have to handle this type of executions. So in this particular example, so in this particular tutorial, so I am going to explain user defined exceptions using raise class. Okay, make sure raise class can be used both with user defined and predefined exceptions. So let me explain how to raise predefined exceptions using raise class. Okay, so let's take the same example. Okay, no issue. Yeah, so here there is a chance of getting error. So in the begin section you have to write like if b equal to 0, then just simply write raise followed by exception name, raise followed by exception name, 0 underscore divide. Okay, simple syntax, raise followed by 0 underscore divide. It can be user defined exception or it can be predefined exception. In this example I'm explaining predefined exception, so I have written like 0 underscore divide. Okay, so let's add the exception handling code here, exception. So exception, so the syntax is when 0, exception name is 0 underscore divide, then dbms underscore output dot put underscore line. Okay, now please enter, I'm giving one statement, please enter b value other than 0. Okay, so you have to add like a c equal to a by b, raise error, then see here. So you have to write here else. Okay, else these statements. Okay, and then you have to end if block. Okay, so and if. See here, if the user gives value 0, then the control goes to exception block and it will print please enter b value other than 0. If b value is not 0, then the control goes to else block. Let's try to execute this code. So 4 2, so no issue now. 4 0, see here, so I have given b value 0, so the control goes to exception handling block. That is, it is printing the statement like please enter b value other than 0. Okay, so please remember the raise syntax is raise followed by user defined or predefined exception name. This is the syntax for raise. Okay, now let's move on to the user defined exceptions using raise class. Okay, let me take another example now. Edit raise yeah, see here, so this is the PLSQL block. Okay, so I'm trying to explain exception handling, okay, for this type of conditions. When a student enters marks less than 35, then I have to raise my own exception because Oracle does not support this type of exceptions. Oracle does not have any implicit exception for this type of conditions. Okay, see here I have declaring some variables, for example student name, okay, marks, okay, and see here, so when using user defined exceptions, so first you need to give name to the user defined exception. The syntax is user defined exception name and exception variable, exception data type, like this you have to give. For example, my exception name is marks. For example, my exception name is marks exception, then exception. This is the syntax to create your own exception, that is user defined exception. Okay, for example, is exception, is exception. So this is the user defined exception. See here, I have created one user defined exception, that is marks exception. Okay, now, so using this statement, okay, we are reading all the student values. For example, your student is entering name, student is entering marks. Now if marks less than 35, then you have to raise some exception. So if marks less than 35, then raise, see here the syntax, so raise user defined exception. Okay, so raise marks underscore exception, see here, marks underscore exception. Okay, else you can write your code. If marks greater than or equal to 35, so you just print student name and you are promoted to the next level. Okay, if the user enters marks less than 35, then the control goes to this marks underscore exception block, that is here exception. So when marks exception, then dbms underscore output, so student name followed by you got low marks. Okay, if a user enters less than 35 marks, then marks underscore exception will be raised. So the control goes to this section. Okay, let's execute this code. So at the rate raise demo2.sql. So let me give some name. Make sure it is a varchar, so I am giving in inverted commas. So Kumar, marks is for example 45. So no issue. See here, Mr. Kumar, you are promoted to next level. So let me execute this code again. So this time I'm giving a name like for example Nani. This time I'm giving marks 30. See here, Mr. Nani you got low marks, you are not promoted to next level. So let me explain this code, how it is called. Edit raise demo 2.sql. Sorry. Yeah. See here. So this time user given value 30. That means the code is here. So that means, so marks less than 35. 30 means. So raised an exception called marks underscore exception. See here, marks underscore exception. So marks underscore exception. So the control goes to exception block. And this is the matching statement of for marks underscore exception. This is the matching statement. So the output printed on the screen is, so mister, you got low marks, you are not promoted to the next level. Okay, so please remember the key points. You can use raise class can be used with both predefined and user defined exceptions. Okay, the syntax is raise followed by predefined or defined or user defined exception name. Okay, when coming to predefined exception, no need to declare variable to create predefined exception. Just use raise followed by predefined exception name. Example, raise 0 underscore divide. If you are using user defined exceptions, so first step is create user defined exception name with exception. For example, see here, for example, is exception. This statement must be in begin section. Okay, then you have to, this statement must be in declare section. Okay, then you have to go to begin section and write your logic, and then you have to write like this. So raise somewhere, some logic is there. So for some condition it is saying like raise yes exceptions. Okay, thank you. You can get this code file from my YouTube channel. So under every video, so about tag is there. Under T.A.K.R you can get this file like this. You can click it, then you will get my code document. Okay, thank you.